to all decks. It's time for a brand new... Wait a minute. It is not time for a brand new episode of Enterprise Incidents. It is time for a classic episode on the Cine-Files, hosted by Steve Morris and Johnny Roca. What's going on here, Steve Morris?
Well, I feel like it feels like we're going forward and backward in time because we began in 1982 with Wrath of Khan on the Cine-Files, but that was almost 5 years ago. And then we went back in time with John Roca to Space Seed to 1967, where it all began. And that was just this week. And now we're going back in time again. And I'm so happy that we have John Roca, and we're going to talk at least a little bit about the greatest Star Trek film ever made, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
There's no greater film that makes me stop and delay all my plans than when I'm flipping channels and Star Trek Wrath of Khan is on. And it was such a joy, such a great memory of mine on the Cine-Files to have this conversation with the two of you. Because, you know, when you find those Star Trek ports in the storm, you want to stay a little bit longer than you would on other ports that you discover, and dive in deep and see if they love it as much as you do, and what new perspectives you can find about the movie through their eyes, and certainly through both of your pairs of eyes. I was able to see the film in new and interesting ways. And they always come in. Your thoughts, your comments, your opinions from that episode always come in when I'm watching the movie, for sure, in my head.
I got to tell you, I remember I was at the ArcLight Theater in Hollywood, and some guy comes up to me and he says, "Are you Scott Mantz?" And I remember I said to him, "That depends." And he goes, "Well, I love your episode of the Cine-Files on Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan." And I just it made me so friggin' happy, because that was one of my favorite movie conversations ever. It was the first episode of the Cine-Files I ever did. And John, I got to tell you, to have you back on Enterprise Incidents for what really is the third time to talk about Space Seed, it was such a great full circle. And so the first question I have for both of you guys is a question that someone else brought up on our Facebook page. And that question is this: do you think that we, the three of us, love Space Seed because we are looking at it through the lens of the Wrath of Khan? What do you think of that, Steve?
I can 100% say no. I love Space Seed. I always did. I love Space. I was so excited when Wrath of Khan came on, because I'm like, oh my God, it's one of my favorite characters. I always love the episode. 100%.
How about you, John?
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I saw Space Seed first before Khan. So for Khan. So for me, it has always been one of my favorite episodes. And so when they announced that it was going to be Khan, Ricardo Montalban, I was over the moon. And I remember trying to catch it, right? Because at that age, at that time, I didn't have the kind of money to have a VHS running all the time to record whatever. I just was like, will it show before the movie comes out? And sure enough, I think a few weeks before the movie came out, they showed it in rotation just to get it fresh in my head. So yes, no, it is not through that prism at all. It helps us to appreciate that film, though, more than ever. And I almost envy people who see the film before Space. No, I don't envy people who see the film before Space Seed, because that context is so essential to enjoying Wrath of Khan.
You know, I've always loved Space Seed.
Yeah.
But I think I do love it more because of the Wrath of Khan. Like, I really do think that you can't watch Space Seed without watching the Wrath of Khan. And you also can't listen to the three of us do a deep dive on Space Seed without the three of us doing a deep dive on the Wrath of Khan, which is why we are presenting, thanks to both of you, really, we are presenting this special episode of the Cine-Files on the Enterprise Incidents page. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, listeners of Enterprise Incidents, brace yourself for the greatest episode of the Cine-Files on Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan!
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a voiceover artist, host of numerous shows in LA, and occasionally an actor. And today, this This is one of the most anticipated episodes ever in the history of the Cine-Files, and I'm so excited that we finally get a chance to sit down with our guest.
Yes, and our guest, no further ado, let me introduce from Access Hollywood, Scott Mantz. Scott, welcome to the Cine-Files.
Guys, thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here to talk about the one thing that I love talking about more than anything.
Really?
And that is you, Roka.
What? No!
You! I mean, after all this time,
Yes.
for us to be in the same room,
I can't believe we've come to a truce.
a truce,
Yeah.
a temporary truce,
Temporary
my
truce.
friend. For the next hour or so, you and I are going to put aside our differences. Talk about something that we both love, and that is Star Trek.
Star Trek II.
Star Trek II.
The Wrath of Khan.
The Wrath of Khan,
Yeah.
which is, as we all know, widely hailed as the greatest Star Trek movie of them all.
Absolutely.
The Citizen Kane of Star Trek movies.
I 100% agree. And I just want to say, gentlemen, that I want to thank you for
Yes.
coming together, for putting aside whatever history or differences or bad blood you have.
Yeah.
And
But
in
this is how much we love Star Trek.
That's right.
That's right.
That
You
we are stepping aside.
Yeah.
We are putting our differences aside. It is basically like, remember in 1975 when the Apollo Soyuz mission happened and the Americans and the Soviets met in space and they shook hands and everything was great for like 5 minutes.
And then
that's what this is. That is what this is.
What a connection.
So in an hour and a half, we'll be back to the Cold War. is
That's
what
right.
you're saying.
Yes,
That's right.
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
I liken it to Kirk in Star Trek 6, when Spock is trying to convince him to help the Klingons. He says they'll die.
He goes, let them die.
Well, I certainly hope that nobody's going to die under this circumstance.
I don't know. What can happen?
It seems to be a lot of passion in the room, and I think most of that passion comes from Star Trek. Scott, tell me, how did you first come to Star Trek? What is the origin of your love?
The origin of my love for Star Trek goes way back to 1974. I was a 6-year-old kid growing up in Northeast Philadelphia, and I'll never forget the moment we were playing in the cul-de-sac. We were playing wiffle ball, me and my friends.
Wow.
And this guy, Mitchell Paul, who I'm still friends with, we're buddies on Facebook, he realized it's 7 o'clock, drops the bat, runs inside, and we're all looking around going like, where the heck is he going? So I go in to his basement door, and he's already sitting in front of the TV. And the first image that was in my head was the landing party beaming up to the Enterprise, which consisted of Kirk, Uhura, McCoy, and Scotty. What's the episode? Just based on that landing party.
Kirk, Uhura, McCoy, and Scotty.
Oof, I can't say.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, the answer, my friends, is Mirror, Mirror.
Oh, of course it is.
yeah.
Of course
So
it
they
is.
beam up to the Enterprise and the lightning is going on.
Yeah.
And you see the Enterprise flying across the screen from left to right. Then there's the flash of light and it's flying from right to left.
Yeah.
And this episode, there was so much going on in this episode. It flies by. There's the first 2 acts.
Wait, Mirror Mirror is your first Star Trek episode?
Mirror Mirror was my first Star Trek episode. It is the one that got me into Star Trek, but as you know, it is not a typical episode of Star
Yeah.
Trek.
You went in when the characters were all changed.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're spending 90% of your time in the mirror universe with Spock with the goatee.
Yeah.
Love goatee Spock.
It's you only see the Prime universe for a little bit. You know when the evil crew is in the brig.
Right.
You know what is it that will buy you, Spock? Power. Fascinating. Power, Spock. I can get that for you.
That's full Shatner, by the way.
But what got me, in addition to that episode, now Channel 17 in Philadelphia was rare in a couple of instances. On one hand, they showed the complete episodes. They were not stripped for syndication like they were in other areas of the country.
That's great.
Like New York City on WPIX Channel 11, they showed 44 or 45 minutes of a 50-minute episode. In Philadelphia, they showed the entire episode.
That's great.
And they showed it in production order, not in the order that it aired.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
So
So you don't start with Man Trap. You start with,
you start with Where No Man Has Gone
Right.
Before,
Yeah.
then go into Corbomite Maneuver, then go into Mud's Women,
Right.
Yeah.
then Mirror Mirror.
I love
I'm
Mud's
sorry, The Enemy Within. But because they were showing it in production order, they were showing the beginning of the second season. Now, I always felt, and I still feel,
Yeah.
that the beginning of the second season is really when the original series was at its best. You know, first season was great, but the beginning of the second season, you had Mirror Mirror, Amok Time, Who Mourns for Outer Knives, Metamorphosis, a personal favorite, The Doomsday Machine, The Trouble with Tribbles, The Changeling, boom, 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 boom. Every single night at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And as a 6-year-old kid, like, Kirk was my hero. Kirk
Of course.
was my hero. He always said and did the right thing.
Yeah.
He was a man of action, and he was a man of action.
He sure was.
He sure as hell was. What's not to love?
Right.
That's why I still want to be Captain Kirk.
Who doesn't?
Right.
So, John,
that's what
how about you?
Almost similar to that, except in Virginia, growing up a small child. Like, because I'm Latino, I'm growing up in a prominent Latino neighborhood at the time in Falls Church. So for me, TV was my escape. My parents purposely sat me in front of a television to learn English because they're from Bolivia. They didn't want me to speak with an accent. They had seen the racism that existed around the country or around our area of people who spoke with an accent. So my parents were determined that I would not speak with any kind of Latino accent. So they would plant me in front of televisions and I would just watch while they worked. And they had a lady taking care of me who was a 70-year-old lady. And so one of the things that I discovered in the afternoon or watching at night was Star Trek. I could watch Star Trek, and the first one I saw was the one with Captain Pike, where he's debilitated and
the
the
menagerie.
beeps. Yeah, menagerie with the dudes with the heads and the veins.
Right,
like
sure.
all of that. For a young kid like me to see this level of adult stuff in Star Trek was so engrossing to me. And from that point forward, I became a massive fan of Star Trek. And just like Scott, an incredible fan of Captain Kirk. I love Shatner to death. One of my greatest life highlights. I can go to my grave having asked Shatner a question at Comic-Con and having him answer it in such a fantastic way. And I got to tell him how he reminded me of my father, because he very much has the same kind. My dad had the same kind of energy as Kirk, and I think that's what I kind of gravitated to Star Trek more as I was a child, because my dad was always working, and he was almost never home until later on at night. So in a way, me watching Kirk was me connecting with my father, spending time, because my dad could be very much like an old school, like Kirk, you know. He's like, man, you do this. You don't have any questions. Just do it. You know,
He spoke in absolutes.
He did sometimes. He really
but
did.
with a Bolivian
But with
accent.
well, yes, when he spoke English, but then in Spanish, you know, it was like, yo no entiendo por qué haces esto. You know, he would just do these kinds of things. And so for me, it was always so
I've
I
never
got to-
loved your dad so much as I do right now.
He was so great. He was so, and so when I got to ask Shatner that question at Comic-Con a couple years ago, it was everything to me. Everything to me to have him hear that and say thank you. Because he had passed from cancer, I got to tell him that. And Shatner was so warm. In a room full of 2,500 people, he was so warm. And I've worshipped him since. And I know his personal stuff, whatever. But for me, I watched TJ Hooker. I watched everything that he was in. And of course, Boston Legal, which was the greatest thing he did since Star Trek, in my opinion.
Absolutely agree.
Denny
He won
Crane.
Emmys for
Yeah,
that. Yep,
exactly.
absolutely.
So Mad Cow, all that stuff. He was so great. But Star Trek was the thing. And also because it was a multi-racial cast.
Right.
And for me, that was really new. As a Latino kid, once again, there were no Latinos in Star Trek, but like there were people of different origins, different ethnicities.
Right.
And so for me, there was a connection there constantly, and just the fascination of exploring these social issues, which still remains a very strong part of my personality and my makeup as a human being, focusing on social issues. You know, and Star Trek did that.
Yeah, so for me, it's the same. You know, same era. I don't know what my first Star Trek episode was. It probably was 1974 or something like that. It was coming home from school. I was in the Bay Area, so it was on Channel 2 or Channel 20, and I remember as a kid, it was like, oh, right now Star Trek's on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. Oh, now it's on 6 on this channel. Oh, it's on 10 o'clock at night. Wherever it was, I was going to watch it. And we talked about formative things on this show before. For me, comic books were obviously a really formative thing. The first time I saw Enter the Dragon, that created this lifelong love of martial arts. Star Trek might be the most formative thing in my life. It really might be. I've been rewatching all the episodes. There's a wonderful podcast called Mission Log, and they're going through every single episode of Star Trek, including the animated series. So now I'm in the middle of Next Generation.
People don't love the animated series enough.
I do.
That's a good series.
It's some of those
I
episodes.
love it enough too.
The animated series,
Yeah.
some of those episodes would have made damn fine live action shows,
Yeah.
like Yesteryear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been a great episode.
They're on
No,
Netflix.
absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, the moral core of the show and the ideas of the show are just created the way I look at the world. Like, one of the big things I love about Star Trek is they don't really have evil. Evil is a concept that you see in Lord of the Rings or you see in Star Wars. This is bad. These are the bad people.
Right.
This is the dark side. Right. And Star Trek is always, evil is this thing that means you don't understand the other side. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't adversaries. It doesn't mean there aren't people doing bad things. But they're always doing bad things for a reason. Yeah. There's always a motivation behind it. And the other, big idea of learning, of the idea of we might disagree, but we can go work together to accomplish a goal and learn a thing. These are things having done, I was out on a boat in Mexico doing a great white shark documentary and trying to articulate why there are guys in the water riding on the backs of great white sharks. And the phrase that kept going in through my head is, risk is our business.
What the Starship is all about.
That's what
We're bored her.
That's why and it's like, like those words, they go with me my whole life. And as we look at the politics in our world today and the issues that we're facing in the world today, the Star Trek morality is still a guide for me.
Absolutely.
The morality that you're describing is one of the most endearing aspects of Star Trek beyond the characters themselves. And a large reason for that was because, in the late 60s, when we had Vietnam, civil rights, the counterculture, the Cold War, and here's
feminism.
The show, right, okay, here's a show in 1966 that had the balls to put an Asian, a Russian, a black woman, a Scottish guy, and an alien, like a real alien, all together, and their backgrounds made no difference. It didn't matter, but they were all there. The diversity was represented, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, but also the moralities that you're talking about that we don't understand it. So when you have episodes like The Devil in the Dark, where they don't understand what the Horde is. It's a monster killing its people. We got to kill it.
Right.
But then when they realize it is a mother protecting its young, and they go, whoa, we were wrong.
Yep.
Right.
Or Metamorphosis. The companion is holding us here. We got to get off the planet so we can get Commissioner Heffer to the Enterprise. We got to kill it. Wait a minute. The companion is a woman in love with Zephyr Cochrane. Right. Oh, we were wrong. That even in the 23rd century, in the 24th century, we are not perfect, but we're always striving for that perfection, learning what it means to be human. And that is what makes Star Trek different from other space operas like Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica or Doctor Who. Yeah. I mean,
and it's no disrespect to those shows or what those are.
No, none at all. Yeah. It's just different. Yeah.
So let's get to Wrath of Khan. And we got a long journey to go through. Yeah. We have to start off with this idea that this is the first television series that had a fan following that was so powerful that it brought back Star Trek the Motion Picture. And we have to talk a little bit about Star Trek the Motion Picture before we get to Wrath of Khan. So that comes out, it's 79?
79.
December 7th.
December 7th. I knew that you would have the date.
Yes, mister.
Scott Mantz, ladies and gentlemen.
I remember I was in line with my family at the Cinema One in Larkspur to go see it opening night. And when I was a kid, I loved it.
I did too.
I do not love it now.
I still love it.
I still love it.
I love it more, actually.
I even love the extended director's cut. I don't care. To me, it's an extended Star Trek episode, and I love it to pieces.
Okay, but why don't you love it?
Yeah.
Or why did you love it then, but you don't love it now?
Well, I loved it then because I was 11. And because it was Star Trek. Yeah. I mean, I loved all Star Trek. And I'm not saying I hate it, but it is vast and very impressed with its own special effects. I don't think they have the characters quite right, particularly Kirk, who's kind of an asshole throughout the movie. That's a big problem in terms of who, because I love Kirk too. Yeah. And also it drifts in terms of its plot points. It doesn't hit them. Plus, we're in sort of a real retread of areas that we've handled pretty well with Nomad and Doomsday Machine and all those things
fair.
In the original series. And it's sort of like, I kind of been here before.
Yeah.
And so did I love it when it came out? Yeah. Did I watch it on Showtime over and over and over again? Yeah. Is it Star Trek? Yes, it is. Is it what all of the Star Trek fans wanted? No.
Well, I would say for me, the reason I still love it, Steve, is because at its heart, it's this love story between the Stephen Collins character and the alien Ilea, right? Which is and it's interesting to me because that's the first episode I watched of the Star Trek series. Is this love between Captain Pike and the girl on the planet. And so for me,
Venus.
Star Trek has always been about love. And so the connection I have with the original movie, the motion picture, is because to me it's a love story. And so since that was my entryway into the Star Trek series itself originally, the movie works for me in that way still. And you have Kirk doing his thing, Spock doing his thing, and those weird, it's almost 2001-ish, or 2001-ish.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
having these like interesting angular things and where they're at, and the whole V'ger thing is like so easily figured out, but it's still this confrontation of, once again, it's what you said, Scott. We think this thing is evil. We need to destroy it. Oh, we were wrong. It's something else.
Right.
You know.
All right, here's the thing. Okay, Steve, you hit on something that is what I love about the film. First of all, when I saw the movie on the day it came out, my dad took me to see it. I was 11. When's your birthday?
October 14th.
Okay, November
1968.
21st, 1968.
Wow.
We are absolutely
Yeah,
right
apparently.
there together, brother. All right, so here's the thing. Like as a kid, yeah, I loved Star Wars. I loved Alien, the first Superman movie. All those movies
yeah.
were like the beginning of this like 7 or 8 year revolution in film that Spielberg and Lucas and like Zemeckis were doing. But you know, the motion picture for me, what I loved about it initially in '79 was seeing the Enterprise on the big screen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah, the special effects are unique. It was a very hard movie to make. Douglas Trumbull was called in at the last minute. Douglas Trumbull, who did the effects on 2001: A Space Odyssey and
so
Close
therefore,
Encounters.
yeah, that makes sense.
So he had to rush, and it did work. You know, in the end it worked, but it was not pleasant for him. But my love for motion picture changed over the years, and once I started reviewing movies in '98, and then went back and watched motion picture again, I realized that motion picture is actually a really good film because the characters are not the characters that we love from the original series. And what I say about that is basically motion picture is supposed to take place 2.5 years after the end of the original series. So Kirk pulls a dick move to get the Enterprise
does.
back. Spock has his own motive to be back on the Enterprise.
Right.
McCoy just doesn't want to be there because he was happy doing his practice back on Earth. So now these characters who have been working together for 5 years, who had this amazing chemistry in the original series, they have to learn how to work together again.
Yes.
They have to rediscover who they are to each other and who they are to themselves. Like, remember, you know, when Admiral Kirk is on the Enterprise, like, he doesn't know where Turbo Shaft 8 is. I mean, it's his ship, and he pulled that dick move to get it from Decker. So, yeah, he is an unlikable character. Yeah. But chronologically, in terms of the story and the evolution of those characters, it did make sense.
Right.
And to this day, I see it as Star Trek's answer to 2001, not Star Trek's answer to Star Wars.
Well, and I think what it is it's part of it is the difference between being a TV series and a movie. Because in a TV series, I'm going to forgive the episodes that aren't A+, because you can't deliver all these A+ episodes. In a movie, the standards go higher because we're going to wait a long time. You're going to spend a lot of money, and so. Is Star Trek the motion picture as bad as many of the bad Star Trek episodes? No, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It hits kind of in the middle for me. Is it worthy of a Star Trek movie? It's fine, you know. And the interesting thing is they spent a lot of money,
$46 million.
way over budget, and it does okay. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
It doesn't do great. It does just well enough that they say, maybe we could do one more, but you're going to get a lot less money.
And where the first movie was done by the motion picture division at Paramount. The second film was done by the TV division. It was basically a television production for the big screen, where the first movie cost about $46 million to make. The second one cost a little over $11 million to make. So it cost a third less, and it was 30 times more exciting.
Yes.
And this is one of the, we always want to talk to young filmmakers out there, people who appreciate film. money is not the answer.
Agreed.
Sometimes money really helps. It's really nice to have. Money does not make your movie good. Creativity and good ideas and great characters and wonderful scripts, that's what makes your movie good. If you don't have those things and you have a lot of money, you have a very expensive bad movie. So we move into preparing for Wrath of Khan, and we got to bring up this guy who I think is really the elephant in the room, and that's Gene Roddenberry.
Yes. Well, for starters, Gene created the show, and he was listed as a producer on Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which, as you said, went over budget. There were major problems. He was very difficult to work with. He, was a thorn in the side of the studio. He was a thorn in the side of the director, Robert Wise. So when it came time to produce the second film, Wrath of Khan, the studio decided to go with Harve Bennett, and Gene Roddenberry was listed as a creative consultant, which basically means nothing.
Yes.
Harve Bennett was basically the Gene Coon of the Star Trek movies. The way Gene Coon came into the original series halfway through the first season after Gene Roddenberry stepped down as a day-to-day producer. And what Gene Coon did with the original series was he took what was something that was already great and he made it better. He gave the show more humor, more heart. He developed the characters further, made them more fully realized, and this is crucial, he further solidified the dynamic between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Yeah, right.
So what Gene Coon did for the original series is what Harve Bennett did for the Star Trek movies.
Well, and the thing that I think is so important to talk about is we want to put people up on a pedestal, that you are the great man. And that's true of Gene Roddenberry. It's true of George Lucas. It's true of other people. And most of the time, certainly in the film world, but in a lot of other worlds too, this is a collaborative process. No one person comes up with all the good ideas, and it's not particularly healthy to have a whole bunch of sycophants sitting around you telling you you're great.
Prequels.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly what I'm saying.
Now, Wrath of Khan, like before they got to the person we're going to get to in a minute, Gene Roddenberry had written a draft of a Star Trek film where the Enterprise went back in time
to kill Kennedy,
to
or to
stop him from being killed.
Yeah. Not to kill Kennedy.
And
that's a different movie.
But I mean, it's like
Mirror.
and I read that, and it was a mess.
Oh, really? You read it?
It was a mess. Like, I mean, Kirk had issues with JFK, and they're talking on the bridge of the Enterprise. I mean, it was so stupid. It was so stupid.
I just
Thank
didn't
God.
like the Bay of Pigs. I didn't like the Bay of Pigs.
So we're moving forward with Harve Bennett. There are several different scripts, and first of all, this rumor starts to go around. Not rumor. Nimoy might not want to do it, and if he does, he wants to die. Is that correct?
That was how they got Leonard to come back for the second film.
Yeah.
Harve Bennett was already sort of steering the ship at this point, and he said, we want you to go out in a blaze of glory. And he said, okay. Like he thought, you know what, if I can go out and this is it. And this is after he almost didn't even come back for Star Trek: The Motion Picture because he was upset with Paramount over the licensing of his image throughout the 70s as Spock, and he never got a dime for it. So he wasn't going to do the motion picture at all. They were going to recast the character of Spock until Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was at the studio at the time, said to Leonard Nimoy, look, we are doing Star Trek: The Motion Picture. We are going to have the character of Spock in this movie. How would you feel if someone else other than you played that character? So they settled. He did the first movie, but with the second film, it was all right. If it's really gonna go down like this, I'm in. And that brings us to another. Well, I don't want to say an unsung hero, but I would say a genius writer director who crafted a brilliant film on an $11 million budget. Nicholas Meyer.
Yeah. You can't give him enough credit, I think. Yeah. And particularly for a guy who apparently didn't watch Star Trek. Yeah. Like, for him to come in and understand one of the key things is this is about people. This is about a family. This is about relationships. And all of those spectacular effects that are in the first film isn't really what Star Trek's about. It's not that I have anything against spectacular effects. They're great. But if you don't have that core, then it's not working right.
Yeah.
And they repaired all the stuff that you have talked about here that you felt was not correct in the motion picture.
Right.
The characters are more defined. They're more like we remember them from the TV series. The interaction between Kirk and Spock is really the anchor. Once again, a love story. That is a love story. It's a bromance.
That's a
but
good
it
point.
is a love story.
No
Absolutely.
question about
Those
it.
two guys, for me, will always supersede any other characters in the history of film for me.
You know, not to jump too far ahead
Yeah.
into the chronology of the show, but you know, the scene in the quarters where Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are talking about the Genesis
Yeah.
effect, the banter.
Yes.
that is absolutely
That is
lifted
classic
from
Star
the
Trek.
original series.
Yeah. Right.
That is classic Star Trek. I go right there. That's Star Trek.
Really, Doctor.
Yeah. So
you should learn to govern your. There'll be the death of you. It's such a brilliant thing.
Logic. My God, the man's talking about logic. We're talking about universal Armageddon. Why you green-blooded inhuman.
Yes.
Well, let's get into the movie, shall we?
Yes. Let's do it.
So we start off on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Well, before we even get to that point, we have to point out that when it came time, what are we going to do for the second film?
Right, the
they
story,
went
yeah.
back and
Oh,
they
sure.
rewatched all 79 crown jewels, as they called them, all the 79 episodes of the original series. And there was something about one particular episode that stood out to producer Harv Bennett.
I'm
This
Mud.
character that stood out, but for different reasons. Stella, dear.
I love that episode.
Harcourt. It was Space Seed, and this character, absolutely one of the top 3 guest starring actors on a Star Trek episode.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Ricardo Montalban as Khan. Watching that episode, I don't care how many times I watch it. His delivery in Space Seed is magnetic.
Yeah.
You could see why those people would follow him into space.
Exactly.
You could see why Marla MacGyver's would open your heart. Will you open your heart?
Yeah.
I intend to take this ship. And you're just like, whoa. And the end of the episode, the end of Space Seed, during the trial, the hearing, where he goes, you know what? I'm not going to take you to a penal colony. We're passing by the City Alpha star system. Planet 5 is habitable, Spock. It's a bit hostile, but sure. So Kirk banishes the crew of the Botany Bay to Ceti Alpha 5.
Right.
And this is a show that was produced in 1966. It aired in 67. That line that Kirk says goes, those men went on to tame a colony. Can you tame a world? And Khan looks at Kirk and says, have you ever read Milton, Captain?
Right. Paradise
Kirk
Lost.
goes, yes, I understand. It is better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven.
Yes.
That brings us to the Wrath of Khan.
And I want to say,
By the way, I got a little chill.
yeah, that's right.
That was well introduced.
And
I did too.
And for me, it's the perfect thing because it is the rare actor that could stand toe-to-toe with Shatner on Star Trek's series and almost supersede him, which is why it's such a perfect choice to use him for Khan.
Absolutely.
And as a Latino guy, this was another reason to love this series so much, to have a villain like this portrayed by one of our princes, our kings in the Latino acting community, like Ricardo Montalban.
By any measure,
Yeah.
John, any measure,
Yep.
Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah,
is
regardless of
one
race.
of the greats.
Yes, agreed.
By any measure, just
Agreed.
absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
He is.
But so Nicholas Meyer, who had great success as an author of the 7% Solution.
Oh, yeah. Great.
And as a
Sherlock
writer
Holmes.
director
Yeah.
of the movie Time After Time,
Which is really good. I
That is
haven't
such-
watched that in a long time.
Still holds up. Saw it last year on Encore.
Yes, it sure does.
Still holds
Malcolm
up.
McDowell.
David
Excellent,
Warner,
excellent film.
Roddy McDowell, Mary Steenburgen. Fantastic stuff.
But so the amazing thing about Wrath of Khan is when they were all working on the screenplay, that Nick Meyer, maybe it was just like an adrenaline rush, or maybe he had a triple mocha from Starbucks, whatever it was, he was able to rework the screenplay from scratch in 11 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
11 days. And putting so much into that story, beyond being an action adventure, It is a story about mortality, about growing old. It is a story
about friendship, about revenge,
friendship, love,
Father and son stuff.
the father-son stuff.
Right.
It's
All there.
the enemy below in space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or Run Silent.
Well,
Run
this
Deep
is
in
one of the
Space.
great choices he makes is that he goes, oh, it's the Navy. You know, one of the interesting things, like if you watch Star Wars has a Air Force aircraft carrier model. We have big ships and we have little fighter planes, and everything moves fast. And Star Trek has a naval submarine model.
Right.
Like that's how the strategy and the way and the pace of things and the way things work. And Nicholas Meyer saw that and he added to it. He built that up.
Against the sort of, I don't want to say approval, but to sort of the dismay of Gene Roddenberry, Nicholas Meyer gave Star Trek II a military feel.
Yeah.
He gave it a nautical feel. The uniforms were much more military. The cinematography, the lighting on the Enterprise is much darker. The musical score by James Horner.
was gonna say, the music.
absolutely military. Like the scene
Very
where
much
they're
so.
speeding away from Regula, heading towards the Mutara Nebula, and they're getting the Enterprise ready for battle, is one of the best scenes in the film. The way everybody on all the decks, they're like, getting the Enterprise ready, the photon torpedo tube and everything. The music of that film, James Horner, I think it's his best score, above Titanic, above Aliens.
Wow.
So let's get into the film.
Yeah, getting into the film. Okay, so do you guys ever hear of Starlog magazine?
Yes, of course.
Sure.
Okay, Starlog magazine was the magazine that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Before the internet, I got my sci-fi fix from Starlog magazine, started in 1976. And, in the early 80s, it was like every month I couldn't read that magazine fast enough. And then I remember in 1981 reading rumors that Spock in Star Trek II, The Vengeance of Khan, as it was originally called, rumors are that he's going to die.
Yes,
And I said
I
to my
remember
dad,
this.
I said, they're going to kill Spock. He goes, no, they're not.
Right.
They're not going to kill Spock. Don't worry about it. Well, okay, so on June 4th, 1982, at 6:30 p.m. at the New Orleans Theater in Northeast Philadelphia, this guy was second in line.
Wow.
That motherfucker who was ahead of me kept me from being first. But so
His life didn't go. It all went downhill after that. That was his peak.
This is back in the day when you did not get tickets online.
Oh, no.
You did not have reserved seats. You
had to
went
stand in line.
hours
Yep.
before.
Sure, yeah.
Remember? I missed
Oh, yeah.
those
Of
days,
course.
man. So I left school early that day. It was a Friday, and I waited in line. And as the line grew and grew and grew, I was one of the younger people in the line. A lot of people were older, but because we're all hanging out, we're all talking about Star Trek, I held my own pretty good with these guys. So then the movie starts. Great score, opening credits with James Horner's new Star Trek score, which I thought was great. Yeah. So then you have, wait, who's this? Like Vulcan in the captain's chair?
Yeah.
And then there's the battle, and then there's explosions on the bridge. And then Spock dies.
Right.
And then Spock opens his eyes.
Yes.
And I went, boy, they had us good, didn't they? They fooled us. Yeah. They made it look like he was dying, and he didn't die. Boy, those clever filmmakers, they're not going to kill Spock. That was all just a ploy.
It's a brilliant way not only to psych out the audience, but also make the ending unexpected.
Yes.
Is that now? Because now you feel safe. You're like, oh, good.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Good.
he's not going to die.
Phew.
Phew, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So we have this great sequence, and of course, who is our strange Vulcan in the captain's chair? But it's Kirstie Alley.
Kirstie Alley.
Who I love in Star Trek.
She's fantastic.
she's great.
And I
She's
wish
great.
she'd come back for the third
Yeah.
one. I can't understand why she didn't come back for the third one. Which was ridiculous. Which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
She was
ridiculous.
so
So we're
good.
saying that Kirstie Alley maybe doesn't always make the best career
Gee, you think?
choices. All right.
But the thing about that scene is after Savick is in the chair saying all hands abandon ship, all
Yeah.
hands abandon ship, and then you hear his voice.
Yes.
Activate escape pods. Send out the log buoy. All hands abandon ship. Repeat. All hands abandon ship.
All right, open her up.
Any suggestions, Admiral?
Prayer, Mr. Savick. The Klingons don't take prisoners. Lights.
lit from behind,
You
which
hear,
is so amazing.
and then lights. Boom! There he is.
Yeah.
Admiral James T. fucking Kirk, baby. Yes, he's back and he looks great in that red uniform.
Well, and this is, this is something we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
How your characters enter the film is a big deal. Yeah. This is an entrance.
That's an entrance.
That's how you make an entrance. That's a heroic entrance. And yet the Kirk that we meet is kind of different than the Kirk that we're used to.
But he's still crotchety as he was in the first film. He still has that shades of his kind of crotchety nature so he is caught up in his own kind of like confronting his own midlife crisis.
Right, but that's where it's coming from.
Sense.
It's coming from this internal place of this is a guy who's lost.
Yep.
He doesn't know who he is right now.
Right.
And he is heading to a very dark place.
Yes.
I think if Khan doesn't come back, I'm not saying that Khan coming back is a good thing because he kills a whole bunch of people.
Well, it does for this movie.
But in terms of Kirk's life, without this Khan coming back, I don't think he goes where he can go.
Well, the scene in the quarters where McCoy goes to give him the
glasses.
the glasses for his birthday, and the Romulan ale, which is illegal. That's
to be clear, McCoy is an alcoholic.
Oh, absolutely, he is.
He and Scotty are both
Remember
alcoholics.
The Conscience of the King?
Of course.
When
that's
they're in
right.
the sick bay and Kirk and McCoy says to Spock, "Would you like a drop of the crew?" And he goes, "My father was spared to do these benefits of alcohol." And McCoy goes, "Oh, now I know why they were conquered." but that scene in Kirk's quarters, like I remember when I was a kid, I thought that scene was a little slow. But as a grown up,
great scene.
it is a great scene.
You get it.
Damn it, Jim, what the hell's the matter with you? Other people have birthdays. Why are we treating yours like a funeral?
Bones, I don't want to be lectured.
What the hell do you want?
Kirk is having a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
He doesn't like being an admiral. He doesn't like having a desk job. Right. He misses that seat on the bridge of the Enterprise.
And once again, it's a fantastic, ballsy decision to make your hero go through a midlife crisis in the second film of a franchise that you're trying to launch. You don't make him like Indiana Jones. You don't make him like this regal, like swashbuckling guy. No, there's an internal struggle that he's trying to figure out in his head, and his friends are trying to help him through it, and as best they can. They can. And I think this was smart because the people who had watched Star Trek, majority of the people who had been adults, were in their own experience at that time themselves, and so they could relate and connect. And the kids too, because you understand seeing your father go through it. There's a connection.
Well, there was also, I mentioned how when Motion Picture came out, it had been 10 years since the end of the original series, but the characters were only supposed to have aged 2.5 years, which isn't really fair to them that they had to look only 2.5 years older when in fact they were 10. But now, you know what?
That is such a bizarre choice, by the way. It's like there is a reality here. What difference does it make? Say it's 10 years.
But now all bets are off. And they acknowledge that. I mean, even when Kirk later in the film is reminiscing about Khan, he goes, "As a man, I haven't seen in 15 years. You're trying to kill me." So, okay, we're acknowledging that it has been 15 years since the swashbuckling Captain Kirk in the original series, and he is dealing with his mortality, and he's dealing with like, who am I, without that center seat on the Enterprise.
Yeah. And one of the things that's so good for a screenwriter is you never want to be doing just one thing. Right. You always want to be doing multiple things at once. And the glasses are a great example of this. Mm-hmm. The glasses are A, you love old things. We see all these antiques on Kirk's wall. Yeah. B, it's you need these. I'm a doctor. I'm prescribing these glasses for you. You need them. C, they're a reminder of your age. And then they come back throughout the film, and we see them. They're this feeling of embarrassment for him. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, they're broken. And so it's not. And so we have this one prop, but this prop is doing all this heavy lifting for us throughout the film because it's so symbolic. Exactly.
Right. And the book he gives him too. It was the best of times.
Yeah,
was the
books from Spock.
Charles Dickens,
and he says it. Message. None that I'm aware of.
Except, of course, happy birthday. Surely the best of times.
Truly best of times.
And the worst of times.
Right.
You know?
But that's Spock trying to lift up his spirits as best he can because he's a Vulcan. He's not going to do it like Bones.
So you're talking about a screenplay. You're talking about a story that does many things, like you said. It infuses Charles Dickens. It infuses Melville.
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick. Mm-hmm. And, Khan is Ahab. And Kirk is the whale.
Yeah. Well, and Star Trek has a long tradition of using Shakespeare and literature. Yeah. And Nick Myers comes in and sees that and goes, "Oh, we can do that." And he happens to pick two great books they're just perfect. So we've got Kirk feeling old, and now we have to go off to the Reliant and see our good friend Chekhov.
Chekhov, right?
Yeah,
Commander Chekhov,
who's going to beam down to this planet because they're looking for a life form.
SETI Alpha 6.
So we think.
Well, they're looking for a planet that does not have life.
Right.
Does it have
So
to
they
be
can
completely
test out
lifeless?
this new Genesis device, because there can't be so much as a microbe, or the probe is off.
Right.
So they're like, oh well, it might be a particle of preeminent matter caught in a matrix that we can just
Whatever that
transport
means,
elsewhere. Well. Maybe they should have just moved on.
Yeah, I mean,
first of all, this was not
we don't
SETI
have a
Alpha
movie.
6.
Yeah.
This was SETI Alpha 5, which was adjusted after SETI Alpha 6 exploded.
Right.
But talk about a great buildup, a great setup. Chekhov and Captain Terrell, played by the great Paul Winfield.
He's great.
Beam down, and they
Go through the crazy sandstorm.
You can't see. You're disoriented. They're disoriented.
Yeah.
They get inside the cargo holds, and they see books. Paradise Lost.
Yes.
Moby Dick.
Moby
Call-
Dick.
yes, a call out.
And they see this thing lurking in a cage of sorts.
Right.
What the hell is that? Is what Terrell says. And, Chekhov just braces himself, holding onto a belt where the buckle says Botany Bay. I still get the chills.
Yeah.
From that scene, even though he was not in Space Seed.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Maybe he was just in the lower decks of the Enterprise at that time.
That's fine. Yeah.
But when
Which
he
is
goes,
his contention.
just that look, he's freaking scared.
Yeah.
We got to get out of here now. Damn. He's like, oh man, we got to get out of here. Right. And they sure enough, the entire Botany Bay crew is right outside.
And we talk about entrances and exits.
That is an entrance.
Yeah.
That is and it's not really an entrance so much as a reveal.
Yeah.
Slowly by slowly, the pieces come off his face and the mask, and then he takes it off, and it's the long hair, and he looks pissed.
And if you say that Montalban's performance in Space Seed is off the charts, which it is.
Yes.
It is. He chews the scenery.
Yes.
But in this, it is 3 steps higher.
Yes.
The intensity that he brings, speaking softly, he is a powerful, powerful dude.
On Earth, 200 years ago, I was a prince with power over millions.
Captain Kirk was your host. He repaid his hospitality by trying to steal his ship and murder him.
You didn't expect to find me. You thought this was SETI Alpha 6. Why are you here? Why?
This is the level of control and relaxed confidence, arrogance to a degree because of his intelligence that comes through right from the beginning in that intro. Just how he talks to Chekhov, how he talks to Paul Winfield's character, Captain Terrell, and how he says to him, "But you, I never forget the face." But the thing that's amazing, and this is a great story, is that Walter Koenig read the script, saw that he was in this opening scene, knew he had not been in Space Seed, and did not tell anybody about it. And he said, because if I told someone as an actor, you don't ever give up screen time.
No,
and
of course
if he
not.
had told somebody, they would have rewritten that scene. And it was so from that point forward, people had to come up with an excuse that he was in a lower deck, that Khan had run into him at some point, which is why I remembered his face. And I think it's one of the great lores about this film.
And this goes to one of those points, obviously we're all 3 geeky people
Yes.
who have maybe gotten a little far too into this stuff.
And God bless us for it.
That's right. And
Never too
yes,
far.
there are times that you see a thing and you go, that in episode 24, but we do that. But here's the key thing that we have to remember. If it's good, I don't give a shit.
Yes.
If it's bad, I will point out why you're wrong.
Of course.
I don't care that Chekhov's not in Space Seed because this scene is awesome.
Yep.
And I will forgive you the fact that, who cares?
Right.
It's not important. You gave me a great scene.
Yes.
My favorite moment of that scene, so you have Khan trying to figure out why are you here? And he lets him know, why?
Yeah.
And then, he's says, oh, he never told you the tale. To amuse your captain, never told you how the Enterprise picked up the Botany Bay lost in space 15 years ago, commanded by Captain James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
Just, he's so mad,
Yeah.
so bitter, so building with vengeance. But
First, his anger is upped even more when he finds out that he's Admiral Kirk.
yeah,
Admiral.
yeah.
Oh, it's
Never
just
told you
so
how.
great.
Admiral Kirk.
It's so great.
And then he starts, allow me to introduce you to City Alpha 5's only remaining indigenous.
That scared the shit out of me.
Of course.
Still does.
The effect still works.
There's some giant plastic ear or whatever they did.
Yeah.
Man, that is very unsettling and
Disturbing.
very disturbing.
When watching that as a 13-year-old,
Yeah.
for the first time, watching that thing go into Chekhov's ear, and watching Terrell and Chekhov scream their heads off until they're not screaming, but you know that they're writhing in pain. And I don't care how many times you see the movie, I don't care how many times you see that scene, it is still a very disturbing scene and very out of the realm for something you would see in Star Trek.
This is what I was just going to say. Yeah, it completely is. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, and this is the key to this film is that it is recognizably, correctly Star Trek, and it's taking our character of Kirk to a place that we haven't seen him go before, and it's taking some elements in the story to things that we haven't seen before in Star Trek, but it's still within what is correctly Star Trek.
Yes.
Because you have to push. You can't just keep cranking out the same thing. If you're going to do a movie, you have to take us to a new place, but still be honoring where you came from.
And if you're going to what you said, Steve, that the motion picture barely did enough to warrant a second one. You've got to go balls out in the second one to see if you're going to make it.
Go big or go home.
Go
at
big
this
or go
point.
home. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we come back to the end. We're now back with Kirk, and he's in a shuttlecraft heading to the Enterprise. And this is the big thing I want to point out about the difference between Wrath of Khan and motion picture, is both of them have a sequence where Kirk is in a shuttle heading to the Enterprise.
One's a lot shorter than the other.
One is like, particularly the director's cut. And the director's cut for motion picture, that goes on for like 8 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And that sequence in motion picture is, look at how amazing our special effects are. Isn't this amazing? And it is. Beautiful special effects. And there is no character to it. This trip to the Enterprise is all about Kirk's nervousness and excitement and him seeing who he was as a young man compared to who he is as an old man. And he's filled with internal conflict. Yeah. And that is why it's better.
And it's so great. He says to Sula, I'm glad to have you at the helm for a few weeks. I don't think these kids can steer, but the shift in tone from the scenes on Ceti Alpha 5 and the Botany Bay cargo holds, which is very dark and really like setting up what's to come. And then that split second when you see Kirk reading A Tale of Two Cities on the shuttlecraft on the way to the Enterprise,
glasses.
and the score becomes very like light and idealistic. And you're seeing the Enterprise. Basically, you're seeing the same exact footage that they shot for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and they're just cutting to the chase. Let's get this thing docked. And then the way he enters and he's seeing Scotty, and he goes, Scotty, you're old space dog. And he goes, I had a weep out, sir, but Dr. McCoy pulled me through. And Kirk goes, a weep out of what? McCoy
Shore
goes,
leave.
Shore leave, Admiral. That's so great.
And we get
Scotty.
as Kirk goes through the Enterprise, we see his excitement. We see him, he cuts off the inspection short. We go up to the bridge. We're going to take the ship up, but he's standing in the background. And Shatner's performance is great.
So great.
Yeah.
Shatner's performance in The Wrath of Khan is his finest hour.
No question.
Agreed.
I mean, people make fun of the scene where he screams Khan, but his performance that he nowhere else in Star Trek, or I would say, I watched T.J. Hooker too, and I watched Boston Illegal and The Practice, where he originated the character of Denny Crane. He has never been better than he is.
Agreed.
His arc in The Wrath of Khan is the genius of William Shatner, and he goes from the way you see him just in a crisis to being excited to be back on the Enterprise to sort of secretly being excited about sitting in the seat again, even though he wants to make sure it's cool with Spock. But we'll get to that.
But also unsettled. When McCoy says, do you
want a tranquilizer?
Do you want a tranquilizer? He goes, The shaking of the head. The shaking of the head to me is everything.
By the way, Roka just did a beautiful head shake. If this is on video, you would have seen it.
I love that moment because it is the one of those rare moments where we see Captain Kirk purely vulnerable and weak in that moment.
Well,
not weak in a negative way, just because human. Yes,
and then a split second later,
Spock says to him
when Saavik takes the Enterprise out and everything is fine. McCoy looks at him and Kirk is like, "Yeah, piece of cake." I wasn't worried at all, Dr. McCoy.
So great.
But it was such a great scene. The way the mentor Spock was like, "Yeah, take her out, Mr. Saavik." Yeah. And look,
Spock's clearly a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. He's the teacher we want to have. He's sensitive. He's tough. He's got all sorts of wisdom to drop on you. I want to say one thing just about Shatner's performance. This is what Nicholas Meyer said. This is how he says he got the performance out of him, was a lot of takes. Because what he said was in the first takes, you saw the Shatner persona.
Right.
and then the second take and the third take, and then Shatner would push the persona. He would get bigger. And then what would happen is after many takes, he would just start to get tired. And the Shatner persona would sort of fade away, and you were left with the man.
You were left with an organic
person who's just humanly interacting with these other people. Mm-hmm. And he did this over and over and over again. And this is the thing of being a director is, there's the wonderful quote from Orson Welles that the job of the director is to make love to the actors. Yeah. And every actor wants to be made love to in a slightly different way. And, of course, he doesn't mean make love to sexually, although he did that sometimes. But he means that you got to find out the key to unlock the potential of the actor. Yeah. And it seems like Nicholas Meyer's found a thing here for Shatner.
Yeah.
And his performance, as you say, is amazing.
Well, if you connect what happens with him in Bones with the Romulan ale and the glasses, that's he's still strong, but the struggle is there. The midlife crisis struggle is there, and it permeates the whole film.
This is not about age, and you know it. It's about you flying a goddamn computer console when you want to be out there hopping galaxies.
Spare me your notions of poetry, because we all have our assigned duties.
Paul, you're hiding behind rules and regulations.
Who am I hiding from?
From yourself, Admiral.
So we have Chekhov on a monitor talking to, for the first time we meet, Dr. Carol Marcus and her son David. And there are scientists that are working in this place, and Chekhov is saying, we're going to come take the Genesis device from you. And they freak out. All the scientists are upset because the military has always taken advantage of science, and they're going to do it again. They're going to weaponize this thing. We don't know what it is at this point. Right. And who gave this order? Chekhov with this strange pause.
Strange pause. Haunting
pause.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Admiral Kirk.
Yeah, James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
I knew it. Scientists always pause in the military.
Right.
This is completely improper, Commander Chekhov. I cannot and will not subscribe to your interpretation of these events.
And what we discover, of course, is that there's Khan standing beside Chekhov, feeding him.
Yeah. Right there. Yeah. Right. When you stop looking from Carol's point of view and you're on the Reliant and Khan's standing right above him, and he's got the eel in his head and he's doing exactly what Khan wants.
And this leads us into Carol Marcus trying to make essentially a phone call with very bad cell reception to Kirk on the Enterprise. Why are you taking Genesis away? And again, Shatner's performance in who's taking it?
Yeah, who's taking Genesis?
Is really good, and she doesn't hear him. It's extremely frustrating in just the way that, can you hear me? Hello? On your cell phone.
Yeah, basically.
It's really frustrating now. And suddenly we have a real crisis. We're out on this training mission, but now Kirk's got a real crisis to face.
Yeah. They're the only ship in the quadrant. They're the ones who can get to regular one the fastest.
Right.
But it's a boatload of children, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Spock, these cadets of yours, how good are they? How will they respond under real pressure?
As with all living things, each according to his gifts. Of course, the ship is yours.
No, that won't be necessary. Just get me to regular one.
He has this moment where he thinks he has to do the right thing, and he tells Spock in his quarters, like, you can still take command of the ship. And Spock has to tell him. Like, you assume something that is not true.
You proceed for a false assumption, Captain. I have no ego to bruise.
I have no ego to bruise.
Yeah, that is another great moment.
That moment makes me cry every time.
You proceed from a false assumption. I'm a Vulcan. I have no ego to bruise.
You're about to remind me that logic alone dictates your action.
I would not remind you of that which you know so well. If I may be so bold, It was a mistake for you to accept promotion. Commanding a starship is your first best destiny. Anything else is a waste of material.
I would not presume to debate you.
That is wise.
He's saying to him, "This is where you should have never taken the admiral position."
Right, you never should have taken the job.
Yeah.
Your place has always been on the bridge of the starship.
And in a way, and my place is at your side.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's a beautiful scene.
Right, because Spock is saying to him, "I love you," without saying to him, "I love you."
Yeah, you're my first officer. You're my superior officer.
You're my superior
also
officer.
my friend.
You are also my friend. I have been and always shall be yours.
Such a great
such a great moment.
There's not a wasted word in the scene. And particularly because that's also the scene where we hear for the first time that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah.
Or the one. Then, right after that, you're on the bridge, and Kirk walks through, and he's Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Bridge to all decks, emergency situation has arisen.
Yeah.
As of now, I'm assuming command of this vessel. Everyone in the audience is like, yeah, he's back!
In a completely different way than he did in the motion picture.
That's the thing. There's this very similar plot going on.
Yeah.
And yet, story-wise, it's entirely different.
Just one little thing that I just thought was just a nice little touch. So Kirk is being very captainly now. And then, he's standing right at the helm. And Kirk looks at Sulu and he goes, "Warp 5, Mr. Sulu."
Yeah.
And he smiles. He goes, "So much for the little training cruise." It's a whoosh. It's so great.
Yep.
So we go in, and because Kirk now has to explain to Spock and McCoy what Genesis is.
Yeah.
And we get this beautiful computer graphic from this little tiny company that's a subdivision of Lucasfilm known as Pixar.
Wow.
It's the very first Pixar ever on a movie screen, as far as I know. Yeah.
Very first CGI ever on a movie screen is the demonstration of the Genesis device.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
First time ever. I think it was Mike Miner did some of the special effects on that.
That's great.
But that scene, okay, and it's not just that this is a demonstration of the Genesis device.
Right.
It is the demonstration by Kirk's old flame, Carol Marcus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like Spock, "Oh, Carol Marcus," and Kirk just goes, "Yes." Like, he still loves her.
Right.
But the demonstration of that, the way Carol Marcus, BB Besh, the late great BB Besh, is
And she's great.
talking the voiceover, and you see the demonstration, you see the Genesis device in effect while she's talking over it, and then she stops talking, and then you see the planet transform from a dead moon into a living, breathing planet that that can support any life we see fit to deposit on it.
And by the way, great foreshadowing. What does Genesis mean? Life from death.
Right.
We see this coming. 2 and 3. We see Star Trek 3 coming in this moment. Life from death. Right.
Well, and just getting back really quickly to Kirk's old flame is that, Kirk's a love 'em and leave 'em kind of guy.
Sure.
He has a lot of women in a lot of episodes, and there are a couple of those women who touch him in a different way.
Yeah.
And you see just in the moment of Shatner watching her on screen in this video that this is one of them.
Right, she breaks it
down. This is someone special.
The way he responds to her, absolutely. It is the way an old couple would respond to each other, or people who had known each other intimately. Who's trying to... Carol, who's trying to take Jenna? There's that kind of shorthand between them because of the understanding.
This is important.
Yeah.
And then we get, which we kind of touched on before, the argument between Spock and McCoy.
Yeah.
And this is that, ethos, logos, pathos thing. This is central core to Star Trek.
Dear Lord, do you think we're intelligent enough to... Suppose... What if this thing we use where life already exists?
It would destroy such life in favor of its new matrix.
Its new matrix? Do you have any idea what you're saying?
I was not attempting to evaluate its moral implications, Doctor. As a matter of cosmic history, it has always been easier to destroy than to create.
Not anymore. Now we can do both at the same time. According to myth, the Earth was created in 6 days. Now watch out. Here comes Genesis. We'll do it for you in 6 minutes.
Really, Dr. McCoy, you must learn to govern your passions. They will be your undoing. Logic suggests...
Logic? My God, the man's talking about logic. We're talking about universal Armageddon. You green-blooded inhuman.
And by the way, as Spock and McCoy are going back and forth arguing, that look on Kirk's face where he just like shakes his head, closes his eyes. I mean, I'm like there's so many times on the Bridge of the Enterprise in the original series where Spock and McCoy are going at it. Kirk goes, "Okay, gentlemen, that's enough." I mean, that makes me go, now we're talking. Now this is Star Trek.
And it's so important to Star Trek because Star Trek is an exploration of ideas. Yeah. And the thing about McCoy and Spock in this argument, nobody's wrong here.
Right.
In the middle of the argument, Federation starship approaching. Oh, what do you make of her? It's one of ours. It's Reliant.
What's Reliant? What's Reliant?
Reliant. And then the score kicks in. Yeah. That military score.
Try the emergency channels.
And the next scene is shot and edited and directed brilliantly. The back and forth between the Bridge of the Enterprise to the Bridge of the Reliant. Right. And Kirk sits and they're like, this is damn peculiar. Yeah. Yellow alert.
Is it possible that comm systems failed?
It would explain a great many things.
They're requesting communication, sir.
Let them eat static.
They're still running with shields down.
Of course, we are one big happy fleet. Ah, Kirk, my old friend. Do you know the Klingon proverb that tells us revenge is a dish that is best served cold? It is very cold in space.
They still haven't raised their shields. Mm-hmm. Khan goes, raise ours.
They still haven't raised their shields.
Raise ours.
Their shields are going up.
Lock phasers on target.
Locking phasers on target.
They're locking phasers. Raise shields.
Fire!
When you see the phaser blast hit the side of the Enterprise, like that is still a shocking, like, oh my god.
Because we've never seen anything like this before.
Never seen anything like that ever happen to the Enterprise.
Well, and let's go back 1 second. That's really important, which is that Kirk really screws up.
Yes.
Because Saavik does tell him, hey, we don't have communications. You're supposed to raise shields. Right. And he doesn't. And really, all of this movie would be solved if he had only listened to Saavik, because then he would have his shields up, and there's no way Reliant can take out the Enterprise if it has his shields up. The other thing, we don't pay a lot of attention to what happens below the decks in most of Star Trek.
Good point.
And this movie really does.
Other than Scotty,
Yeah, and this movie really does. And you see, because we hear, 12 people were killed on, deck 23.
Yeah.
We don't see them.
Right.
In this movie, you really do. When that phaser hits the side of the Enterprise, you have bodies flying and smoke fall. And when we see engineering and they have their masks on and there's panic and smoke everywhere.
That's crucial. That's crucial, Steve.
Because it's scary.
There's panic because of all
They're
the
kids.
rookies on the Enterprise. And you hear the people in the back, I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Yeah.
I need air. I need air. I mean, you've never seen that in a Star anything. Like before, I have to say, or since. You have not seen that kind of fear and panic on any starship, let alone the Enterprise.
And even Scotty is at his wit's end in that almost barely keep him from passing out. When he says how much time I could have her online in 2. We don't have a couple of minutes. Hi, Captain. Auxiliary power.
Poor
right?
Scotty.
That guy,
he has to do a lot of stuff.
He really does.
And Spock's point, they knew where to hit us, who would hit us, and why.
Yeah, right.
And then
we're in this great mystery.
Yes.
Who is this? Who's the enemy here?
Who is the enemy here? And then,
but once again, it's go big or go home. This idea of seeing the death of these engineering people in that moment with the shots, go big or go home. Yeah, but
and then, Carbon, the commander of the Reliant is signaling they wish to discuss terms of our surrender.
Such a great moment.
And it's such a great moment. And then
something they'd never conceived of.
On screen, April, and Kirk gets up. Right? He gets up into the frame.
Yep.
The frame doesn't follow him.
Nope.
He gets up into the frame and goes, God.
The pause is what does it. The
Yeah.
pause, which is once again Shatner's performance here. The pause is what sells it. The shock of the pause.
Yeah. God?
Would it be great, by the way, if he didn't recognize him? Like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
He goes, Kirk, shoot.
Movie would have been completely different.
Could you remind me?
But the confidence, of the confidence and the control of Khan, you still remember. I can't help but be touched. I, of course, remember you.
I, of course, remember you.
What is the meaning of this attack? Where is the crew of the Reliant?
Surely I have made my meaning plain. I mean to avenge myself upon you, Admiral. I've deprived your ship of power, and when I swing around, I mean to deprive you of your life. But I wanted you to know first who it was who had beaten you.
Like the delivery, the glee, I mean to avenge myself upon you,
Well, and
Admiral.
this is the thing. Khan is, smarter. He's stronger. He's got all these advantages, and his arrogance and his theatricality, those are his weaknesses.
But I always believe it's because he secretly thinks Shatner or Kirk is his equal. He secretly hates that Kirk is his equal.
That's what he hates about him.
Well, that's what I always think. Because
I agree,
Kirk, even in that moment when he realizes Khan, Kirk immediately engages him in a conversation. Why? Because Kirk needs time to process what he's going to do. He knows that if he plays to Khan's ego, he will buy himself the time he needs to figure it out what to do next.
I got to tell you something. In the, what is it now, 34 years or 35 years this year, 2017, since that movie came out, I've never thought about it like that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Because in the original series, there's that line where Khan says to Kirk, Captain, you're quite obviously inferior. Like, he clearly looks down on him. Right. But it never dawned on me that after all of that, after Kirk had sort of the clarity and the boldness to not just follow orders and regulations, put him on a penal colony, to set him free, in a sense, that maybe he did think, you know what? This guy is my equal. Yeah. And that scares the hell out of me.
Absolutely.
How many people in his entire life ever got the better of Khan?
No.
Kirk. And that's what that's in that
Crap,
moment.
dude. My mind is fucking blown right now.
well,
Am
you
I
will.
allowed to drop the F-bomb occasionally?
Yeah, of course.
Fuck yes.
All right,
Yes.
good.
And that's why I'm going
thought
to beat you on movie fight, man.
Dude, my God.
I always got it on.
All right, gentlemen, the truce. Remember the truce.
The truce. That's right, the truce.
Remember the truce.
I'm always one step ahead of you. So.
Oh my God! How could you do this to me? Oh my God! I gotta practice.
So,
all right, back
and now
to
we get. So we just had Kirk make a screw up of epic proportions, and now in our next moment, Kirk's back. Because this is classic Kirk.
Yes.
Is that this is the trickster Kirk. This is Corbin Might Maneuver. This is poker.
Kobayashi Maru.
This is him not playing by the rules. Right. He's going to cheat. He's going to get the whatever prefix code or whatever the hell we call
Death
it.
has little meaning to us.
Yeah.
If it has none to you, attack us now. We grow ignored at your
Classic.
Classic.
Corbin Might Maneuver.
You're right. He is back. He's back on the very first episode that was ever produced for the original series. Keep nodding as though I'm still giving orders.
So great.
Pull up the prefix code and Sapphic goes, Reliance, come in. And Spock goes, the prefix code? It's all we've got.
And there's even within that, though, we have these little touches of then he has to put on the glasses.
Right.
And that's so great. Little bits of character. And then we take over the control, lower the shields, and here it comes. And Khan's reaction to those shields going down.
Raise them!
Kirk,
I can't!
Kirk got the better of him again.
Yeah.
Kirk got the better of him again.
It is a true battle of wits, because as Spock later said, he's intelligent but inexperienced. Pattern indicates two-dimensional thinking.
Which is, to me, an allusion to the chess game that they play in the pilot. That has always been the 3D chess. Huh. To me, that was always a reference to the original pilot.
Never thought
where
of
Spock does the 3D chess. Yeah, listen, I'm a genius. Goddamn, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I need to have a job on one of these networks. So to me, this is what that moment is. And Spock has to say it because Spock is the one that's playing that 3D chess in the pilot. And to me, that's a reference to go back to old school.
I'm just thinking about that. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So the because we got to move fast. We're going to spend 7 hours trying to get through this 2-hour movie.
You've got to edit it. Sorry, but yeah.
The Enterprise attack on the Reliant, just about as brutal as what happened to the Enterprise. Yeah. And the two ships get away. Just barely. Reliant is can't move right now. Mm-hmm. Enterprise crawls away, and now we got to beam down to Regular One and find out what the hell's going on.
Yeah. But before that,
Okay.
you know, you think, okay, the Enterprise, you know, we fought back, we're okay, and then the doors to the bridge open, and Scotty is standing in the door with
You're right. We have to
Preston,
deal with
and
this.
like you said, we are really seeing the damage, not just to the Enterprise itself, but to the crew of the Enterprise.
Absolutely.
And that scene, honestly, before they get to regular one, you know, and Sky's like, you know, he stayed at his post while the other trainees ran away, and Kirk says to Uhura on the intercom, "Best speed to regular one," and McCoy goes, "You know, I'm sorry, Scotty.
Yeah,
it's heartbreaking."
Yep.
You know, because Jimmy Doohan in that movie was also fantastic.
And in the extended edition, you see more of his connection with
that it's his nephew.
That's right.
It's his
That's
nephew and all this, and it's a Disney actor who plays who had done previous movies as a younger kid in Disney films, and so to see him in that sequence lent that little bit of gravitas to it.
Just there's never been blood in Star Trek.
Right.
The blood on the shirt at the with the cool fold down uniform thing.
Oh
that is
yeah, where you
really
see the blood stain.
powerful.
Yeah, I mean you saw blood a little in the original series, like in the mock time when the that's a great shot.
Yep.
Where, you know, the shirt is cut. And
Yeah.
it's, like lucky to be alive. But when the Enterprise approaches regular, the special effects shot of you know the regular is in the foreground. The Enterprise is approaching, and you see the nebula in the background.
Yeah.
It's actually a gorgeous shot.
Beautiful.
And as the Enterprise is approaching, you hear Uhura saying over and over again, "Enterprise, this is regular. You know, this is Enterprise. Please come in."
We've never been on that side of it. We've always been on the other side.
Right.
And you know, you see Uhura on the monitors all over regular, which is deserted. And then it's an interesting little thing. Is like. As the Enterprise comes across the foreground and the regular is right behind it, you hear the Enterprise sort of power down a little bit. The detail of this movie is really staggering.
So we beam down to regular one, and we have Saavik, Kirk, and McCoy, and this sequence is scary.
Yeah,
it is.
It's
like
really
a horror movie.
creepy.
We just did.
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you say it.
We just did an episode of Alien, and I don't know where in the chronological order that this will come out in our show, but it's very reminiscent to where they're trying to find the alien after, or the face.
Yeah, with the chains hanging down.
Yeah, with the chains hanging down. All that stuff is very reminiscent.
Oh, that's a good point.
And it's bloody.
It's a great scene. It's well staged. I don't know where the hell that rat came from.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You know, maybe it was just on the cargo when they beamed it to.
There's always rats.
There's always rats. There's rats in this house right now. And McCoy's backing up into that body hanging there.
That's scary.
Scared the crap out of me.
You know, all those bodies hanging there. I mean,
his
exhale. Star Trek movie.
You know, that kind of thing that he does.
And he's like, "Jim," like he can't even scream because he's scared to death.
In addition to finding this is the scientist from Regular One, not including Carol or David.
Yeah.
In addition to finding them, who've all been horribly tortured to death.
Yes.
We open up a box and we find Chekhov and Terrell.
And Terrell. And Terrell's the one that tells him he tortured those people.
He went wild. He slit their throats. But while Kirk and Saavik and McCoy are trying to talk to Chekhov and Terrell, they are staring almost into the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're clearly not right.
No.
But McCoy and Saavik and Kirk don't know that yet.
Well, they don't know the level of the not rightness. They know they've been through some shit, but they don't know what's about to happen.
You don't buy Chekhov for a second, though. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Steve.
Of course. And we see that the transporter coordinates, the last time they used the transporter was to beam down to the middle of the planet. We decide we're going to go follow them. And McCoy's great. Go where? Wherever they went.
Suppose they went nowhere.
Yeah.
Then this will be a big chance to get away from it all.
That's great. That's great.
Classic Star Trek.
Of intensity.
Yep.
Humor.
Yeah. Which is the best parts of Star Trek.
Yeah.
With the humor, with the intensity.
Absolutely. Beam down, and then we're right into a fight.
Yes.
And this one is really profound to me. David attacks Kirk, and you can see David is no match for him.
Right.
Kirk is more shocked by looking at this person and going like, "Oh, I had to fight this guy," than he is in the fight scene.
Right.
Disarms him, and then we hear, "David, stop." Right. And Shatner's reaction to the name David is
because he's holding his fist.
He goes, "Where's Dr. Marcus?"
Yeah.
"I'm Dr. Marcus." "Jim." And he goes to Carol.
Yeah.
You know, he takes a beat. He says, in shock, like, "Is that David?" Again, the genius of William Shatner.
Yeah.
Well, and this is like, classic screenwriting rule is show don't tell. Is that we could tell you that Kirk has a son and his son's name is David and he's Carol's son, and we could tell you all this. So much better for Kirk to go, is that David? And see his face, and we know he had this relationship with Carol.
Yeah.
And we know it's an old. As a doctor, you should know that about not putting salt on old wounds.
Dangerous of reopening old wounds.
Yeah.
Yes. Such a great line.
Is that? And suddenly we start to connect. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Is David Kirk's son? Does Kirk have a son? Right. Is that what I'm seeing here? And you start to suspect it somewhere in this timeline, in this moment. It's hard.
Because Dr. Marcus says to David, of course not, David. You're only making this harder, and
hard.
that
right.
is the clue, the cue to lead him into saying what Terrell says, because that is our first real illusion that there's a family here, a broken family here.
Mm-hmm. And then, right as we're dealing with that bit of emotion, we have to hear, "I'm sorry, it's worse than that, Admiral."
Right,
and there we have
harder than you think.
Yeah,
and for Terrell to shoot himself.
Yeah.
Instead of
powerful acting.
Mm-hmm. And Chekhov doesn't get a chance to do anything before the pain finally gets to him. And the way they shot that the ear and the set of eel coming out of the ear. And then there's the whole God, you bloodsucker. You have to do your own dirty work, but now you gotta come down here. Do you hear me? Do you? And then
that's the full Shatner, by the way.
Right.
Now we're into the full Shatner.
That must have been. Wait, Steve, that was take one.
Exactly.
Probably. Scott, Con, you bloodsucker.
Still. Fred. Okay, that's like season 3.
Yeah. Right. But once again, Khan's reaction is great. Khan is shocked. He's got the best of him again. But he has control. He has Genesis. He knows he's going to do that. So he just in that temporary moment, he reclaims the higher ground.
Khan, you bloodsucker. You're gonna have to do your own dirty work now. Do you hear me? Do you?
Kirk, you're still alive, my old friend.
Still, old friend. You've managed to kill just about everyone else, but like a poor marksman, you keep missing the target.
Perhaps I no longer need to try.
Oh no! Let go, he can't take it!
Khan, you've got Genesis, but you don't have me. You are going to kill me, Khan. You're going to have to come down here. You're going to have to come down here.
I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. And I wish to go on hurting you.
I've hurt you. Yes. And I wish to go on
hurting you.
Hurting you. Oh my God.
Usually in these podcasts, I continually am cutting to the actual dialogue of the film, but you guys are doing such a good job performing the dialogue.
Yeah, by the way, we could do a separate podcast where we just act
the whole movie.
The whole movie.
And we'll do it. Don't dare us, mister. We will do it because
not today.
Can.
Yes.
Not today.
I've got my Vulcan ears to put on. Yeah.
And we're going to give just a moment to respect the Khan.
Yes.
I shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive.
I mean, that scene, when you watch that in later years, like when it's re-released in theaters and you go with the crowd, people cheer.
Yes.
They cheer.
I love
Khan, like, yeah, Khan. The echo. It's all about the echo. And then the look on Khan's face where it's like, he looks like he just took like a massive dude.
Right. Well, and I love, too, right before it is the buried alive.
Buried alive. Khan.
And I love that they pan out and it echoes through the stars.
Yeah.
That's how ancient this anger is. It's so powerful.
There's no sound in space, but for Khan, we'll make an exception.
Yes, right.
So most of our cast goes off over to see the Genesis cave, and we have this really lovely, gentle moment between Kirk and Carol where first he's talking about this guy who's trying to kill me who he hasn't seen in 15 years.
Yeah. You show me a son who wants to help.
Yeah. And just
My son.
my son.
My life it could have been, but it wasn't. You ask me what I'm feeling? Old. Worn out. Kirk is saying those words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's exhaled. When he says, Khan, once again, we've never seen Kirk do this in any of the films, or any of the TV series. He's never gone that far.
Right.
And we think, my God, is he really on his last leg? Is this it? But in the whole, he's got this other thing.
He's still Kirk.
He's still Kirk. He's still Kirk.
Then he has, but that tender moment. You're right, Steve. It's such a beautiful scene between
really
them.
gentle, loving, sweet kind of moment. We move into the Genesis cave, and finally we're going to get the answer that we've been waiting for. What did Kirk do at the Kobayashi Maru?
Yeah.
Cheated.
He cheated.
He reprogrammed the simulation so it's possible to save the ship.
By the way, I love that he's eating the apple.
Yep.
And I love that when
in the Genesis cave,
when the 2009 reboot of Star Trek comes out, when the Kobayashi Maru scene is happening, Chris Pine is eating an apple, which is an illusion.
Oh, that was great!
Right, it's an illusion to Star Trek
Hadn't
2.
thought about that.
It's
Good
totally
job.
that illusion.
I love it. He's sitting like Chris
Yeah.
Pine goes bing.
It's so great.
But the great thing about that is like all this point, when Kirk is in the manufactured portion of the cage talking to Carol Marcus.
Right.
You think they're defeated, they're going to be stranded. Where the hell is the Enterprise?
Right.
All this time, Kirk has been pulling the strings.
Yep. Which goes back to Khan, is that yell to me is always like, is it completely sincere?
Yeah.
Because he's continually trying to manipulate Khan.
Right.
He needs Khan to believe that he's trapped in this cave.
I think it's sincere because Khan keeps killing people. Khan
Sure.
keeps so I think the anger is Kirk's frustration at the situation, that it has to keep continuing, because he does get the better of him, but he doesn't win yet, right? So there's an anger and frustration in that, and then that leads into the because his defenses are his guard is all down, which is why he can have that conversation with Carol Marcus.
And when they're talking about the Kobayashi Maru, and he's talking about how he cheated, changed the conditions of the test, I don't believe in a no-win situation. Kirk to Spock,
Great.
it's 2 hours. Are you ready? Right on schedule, Admiral. And then the James Horner score kicks in.
Yeah.
It becomes like this rousing thing, and he gets up, takes a bite of the apple. I don't like to lose.
It's great. It's so awesome.
Great.
And we get to hear that's
Go ahead. The McCoy smile is what
thinking the
sells
same
that
thing.
moment. It sells that moment. Yeah.
He's just like, you old dog.
Because
you son of a bitch.
Because he's been through so many things. Chris always gotten him out of it. Yeah.
Yep.
He's not even mad at him
After
anymore.
all these years, man, he's looking at him like, man, that guy still got it. He's still got it.
great.
And then we get to have the great Planton payoff of it was planted that you keep spouting those regulations to Savik, and now we find out that this was a coded message as per regulations.
Hours
Instead of days.
Yep.
Now we have minutes instead of hours. But when they beam up to the Enterprise and the score is going on, and it's like this rousing moment where they're in better control than you think they were up at this point, even though the chips are still down. The Enterprise is still a disabled starship, and the Reliant can still outrun us and outgun us. That they're running, they're going up to the bridge, and then they see the tactical of the Reliant is actually in much better shape than the Enterprise. There is one chance the Mutara Nebula, the visual won't function, and shields will be useless. And what does Spock say?
Goose.
Sauce for the goose.
Sauce for the goods, Mr. Savick.
Yeah.
Oh, the odds will be even. So then the Enterprise, and I talked about this earlier in the show, when the Enterprise is making its way toward the Nebula, battle stations, the ship is getting ready. And you see all the decks, the people running around, they're running back and forth throughout the corridors. They're in the torpedo room. They're in engineering.
It's something we know why the Enterprise had to have a crew of 400 people.
Yeah.
Because in the series, there was like 12 guys. But now we see, you got to move stuff around. You got to do stuff to get a photon torpedo.
But then by the time, the Reliant is catching up on them and they fire and they miss and, they're backing off, it's important to point out, gentlemen, that at no point during the making of this movie were William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban
in the same room
at the same place at the same time. Yeah. The only time they saw each other was on a view screen, and then for the rest of the time they just kind of heard each other. And at this moment in Wrath of Khan, when the Reliant is backing off And Kirk is like, "Oh, really? Hey, Khan, we tried it once your way. You know, I'm laughing at your superior intellect.
Are you game for another?
Yeah,
well, and again,
for a rematch.
Because Kirk is a poker player.
Right.
Kirk is about playing the odds, but mostly he's about
Not chess,
playing
Mr.
the
Spock.
man. Poker
Yeah.
is that you play the man, and he knows. Oh, Khan doesn't want to do this. I'm going to get him to do it by playing the man. He understands how to play Khan and
He's
does
manipulating him.
He's manipulating him,
which frustrates Khan to no end.
Yeah.
But then okay, so then the ride definitely speeds up just in time for the Enterprise to enter the Mutara Nebula, and then for the Reliant to be close behind it. And at this point on, the chase through the Mutara Nebula becomes run silent, run deep in space.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Submarine warfare. They are on equal footing.
Yes.
And the for again $11 million budgeted movie, and seeing the Enterprise and the Reliant sort of like fly blind. Yeah. And occasionally they'll see a glimpse of the other ship on the view screen, and I love that shot where the Enterprise and the Reliant are flying towards each other, and you can't see anything. And there's a split second where you see the Reliant. Kirk goes, evasive starboard, and the Reliant fires, and it hits the side of the torpedo base of the Enterprise, and then the Enterprise fires. I mean, it's so great.
Well, and in this sequence, by the way, the score is killing it.
Yeah.
The score, James Horner's score, is so good, and the theme, the leitmotif he creates for the Reliant is so scary and powerful. And it's really telling the story, and this is where it's funny. So after Into Darkness came out, and we're not going to talk a lot about it because this is about Wrath of Khan. But I think that night I went home and watched Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, of course.
And the epiphany I had was that Wrath of Khan is not an action film. Into Darkness is an action film. There's very little action in Wrath of Khan. You have a couple of, you have the battle sequence in the middle, and then you have this battle sequence at the end. And other than that, nobody throws a punch. There's no action. And this sequence at the end is very slow because it's run silent, run deep. And the thing is, and this is, something obvious that people don't tend to think about, is that a film is a zero-sum game in terms of time. You only have this much time. You have a 2-hour movie, you have 2 hours to get your business done. If you have an hour and 20 minutes of action sequences, you only have 40 minutes to get all the character and story and other stuff done. And so in a film like Into Darkness, or most of the modern science fiction films, you have so much action that you cannot do the heavy lifting that we do in Wrath of Khan. It cannot happen. There is not enough time. This movie spends so much time developing characters and ideas and advancing story, and that's why it's working. And so when we come into this sequence at the end, it is slow, it is very tense, and it is and you feel the emotional power of what you're heading towards.
And I would argue that the film hurdles its way to that moment. It earns the pause.
Absolutely.
One of the things they tell you in theater is if you're going to pause on stage, earn the pause. And the way you earn the pause is by taking the audience on the journey to that moment. And I think the film itself is constantly speeding to that moment, which is why we were okay to take a break and have a slower than usual action scene that's still fraught with tension and fear and worry.
And the pause literally comes when the bridge of the Reliant is disabled.
Yeah.
Most of the crew, I think everyone on the bridge of the Reliant is dead except for Khan.
Yeah.
And that's when Khan, in a last desperate attempt.
No, Kirk. The game's not over.
And he starts activating the Genesis device. There is no score. There is no score.
Yes.
All you hear are the sound effects of the Genesis device being activated. Right. And Khan is quoting Ahab's last words. Right. He's looking at the view screen, and taking up the entire screen is the whale, the Enterprise. Right. And then on the Enterprise, score kicks in again. There's something going on.
It's the Genesis wave.
What? They're on a build-up to detonation.
How soon? You encoded 4 minutes.
We'll beam aboard and stop it.
You can't.
Scotty, I need warp speed in 3 minutes or we're all dead.
I mean, come on.
And you get a look from Spock. He turns his head, and it is so, sets it up so well. Just that look.
Okay, and that look. Okay, remember the beginning of the movie where you thought,
Yeah, they're not gonna kill Scott.
you go, oh shit.
As soon as he looks down and he's pondering what to do next, you're like, oh no. Don't
do it. Don't do it. And the Genesis device is going off, and the Enterprise is creeping slowly away from the Reliant. It's not going to make it. And another beautifully shot and edited scene is on the bridge of the Enterprise as they're trying to get away. Kirk is in the captain's chair, and he just
arms folded,
zooms in, arms folded, and the camera zooms in very slowly on Kirk, and he goes, "Time,
30 seconds,
30 seconds, or whatever." Then back to Kirk, zooming in very slow. Distance from Reliant. Zooming in slowly on Chekhov, 4,000 kilometers. Zooming back in slowly on Sulu. We're not going to make it, are we?
Line. That's the line,
We're not going to make it,
and
are we?
it's Kirk's. Then Kirk looks to David.
And David shakes his head.
David shakes his head.
Yeah.
Now this is territory we've been in a lot on Star Trek. We got 10 seconds.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die, and we did it. We do it in the Corbomite maneuver. We've done it in a lot of episodes. This is the best one.
Meanwhile, down in engineering.
Are you out of your Vulcan mind? No human can tolerate the radiation that's in there.
As you are so fond of observing, Doctor, I am not human.
You're not going in there.
Perhaps you're right. What is Mr. Scott's condition?
Well, I don't think that he...
Oh, Vulcan net pitch. I'm sorry. I don't have time to discuss this logically.
Yeah.
Remember.
That is so brilliant, the remember. Because the remember means if people come watch this movie, we'll be able to do a third one. Let's lay the groundwork for the third one.
Let's do something that gives us a get out of jail free card.
And how Star Trekian, and in this way of the swerve, which is who would he give the mind meld to? It's not Kirk, his buddy. It's McCoy.
Well, that's
irony.
because McCoy's there.
Yeah, it's all about irony.
But he's perfect. Irony, right? Exactly.
Well, because and this is obviously getting ahead of ourselves.
Given it to Scotty.
The job of the filmmaker is to create conflict.
Yes.
Where is the conflict?
Yes.
It's got to be with McCoy.
Yeah.
So Spock goes into this radiation chamber. Scotty, who's been out of it, leaps to his feet somehow.
Get out of there!
No, and it is. And I remember, I can remember the feeling as a kid.
Oh yeah,
because the sense of doom when he goes in there, and the way the light's shooting out of that, all this stuff
in
is
his face,
in his face, and I went, oh shit,
this is happening. They're doing it. They're going to do it.
Yeah,
and then that moment, sir, the mains are back online. Bless you, Scotty. Go, Sulu, and another well shot, well edited scene. The Enterprise warps out of there.
Right.
The music just sort of like swells a little bit, and the Reliant blows up.
Yeah.
The shockwave of the Reliant blowing up while the Genesis device has been activated.
Yeah.
The shockwave goes further and further out into space. Literally, the Enterprise is just 1 millisecond ahead of that shockwave as it speeds away.
Scotty, go through.
It's so
beautifully
great.
done.
Yeah.
Beautifully done.
Yeah. And then we're all happy because everything's going to be good. And Kirk calls down to
Scotty, well done.
Engineering says, hey, well done, Scotty. And I love that it's Bones' voice.
Yeah.
Jim, you better get down here.
Better hurry.
Better hurry.
And
Looks at the chair.
he looks at the chair.
The shock reaction
Yeah.
of realizing that it could be Spock. Like the jolt that it does to him.
He knows.
And he knows.
He knows.
Why? Because they are connected on a different level, which you are when you have an intimate connection with someone, male or female, irrelevant, when you sense it. And he senses it in
He
that
senses
moment.
it. When you have that connection that you can only have with maybe very, very few people in a lifetime.
Yep.
And the desperation when he gets down and he sees Spock in the radiation chamber.
No! You'll flood the whole compartment. He'll die.
He's dead already.
Originally, McCoy was going to say that line. And Nick Meyer wanted him to say, he's dead, Jim.
Right.
But DeForest Kelley said, I know why you want me to say that, but in this moment, I cannot say that.
Yep.
People
that's right.
will laugh.
Yeah.
It is a trademark. It is a slogan. It's been imitated.
Right.
It has been spoofed. If you will take people out of the film if you have me say he's dead, Jim. So Scotty said he's dead already.
He's dead. It is so much more powerful. And I got to say, just thinking about the scene, I get teary-eyed.
Of course.
And I don't know what the best death scene in a movie is of all time, but for me, this is right up there.
I agree completely.
This is so beautifully done. And Shatner's performance and Nimoy's performance, the talking through that wall, even the first, he goes up and calls to him before, and the microphone's not on. So powerful. And I'm telling you.
You see him say Spock, you don't hear it.
You don't hear it. Then he turns the thing. He goes, I have to turn the thing on. Says Spock. Watching Nimoy get to his feet, and in particular, straightening the shirt.
Straightening the shirt.
Yep.
That's Spock.
That's very Spock.
Right?
Yep. Like even in that, he's still composed.
Yes.
Tries to be.
He's a gentleman.
And the call back to that scene in the quarters.
Don't grieve, Admiral. Just logical. The needs of the many outweigh
The needs of the few.
or the one. I never took the Kobayashi Maru test until now. What do you think of my solution? Spock, I have been and always shall be your friend.
Well, this is the thing is good writing has resonances throughout. Like I said at the beginning, you don't just use those glasses for one thing. Use them for many things. You don't just use the needs of the many for one thing. You use it for many things. You use, I shall be, and I have been and always shall be your friend. Yeah. These are things that come back. The Kobayashi Maru, all of the themes that we've constructed throughout this film are coming to this moment. Cheating death.
Right.
All of this is coming right here. It's so powerful.
But once again, it is his intimate connection with Kirk. Even in that moment, he knows he has to take care of Kirk, which is why he tries to inject just this small amount of levity by saying, I never took the Kobayashi Maru test. What do you think of my solution?
It's like, Spock, come on.
Yeah, right. And then Kirk's like, no, why are you asking me this? But it's Spock's way of taking care of him because he knows he's going to be sad that he's going to die.
And just that scene as it pulls away where they're both leaning against each other,
wait,
mirroring.
Scott, wait. The no is everything. Shatner's no when Spock dies, to me, is the one that breaks me in half and makes me cry every time. Because he has been saying, I don't believe in the no-win situation. I don't like to lose. And for the first time ever,
he really lost.
He really loses.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, but for me, it's the scene in the torpedo tube when he's giving his eulogy, and it says, of all the souls I've encountered in my travels, his was the most. And then he's trying to hold back the tears, and he just Schumann. Yeah. It's like it reminded me of the scene at the edge of City on the Edge of Forever when they're about to beam back aboard the Enterprise and Kirk had to let Edith Keeler die.
Yes.
And he can barely say, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
It's where Shatner's acting is really good. So we have this funeral, and then we have this scene where Kirk and David talk. It's a beautiful scene, beautifully played. And you can see, again, the reluctance. And you're asking yourself, does David know? Because originally, David didn't know that this is his dad. And he's the one who gives Kirk the strength to go forward. Yeah.
Well, I love that scene, too. Like, Kirk, he's trying to read the book. The glasses are broken, another allegory and metaphor. And then Kirk, David comes in and Kirk is trying to be composed. He's a mess. And the way his voice shakes, the way he goes, I poured myself a drink. Would you like it?
He's trying not to connect.
I poured myself a drink. Would you like it? Lieutenant Savick was right. You never have faced death.
No, not like this. I haven't faced death. I've cheated death. And patted myself on the back for my ingenuity.
But just, going from back to back from the Spock death to the eulogy to I'm proud, very proud to be your son. And that hug, like Kirk hugs David, like he's never really hugged someone like that before.
Right.
Like he's and you get to you're back on the bridge of the Enterprise. They're going away from Regula
from the Genesis planet.
from the Genesis planet, and they're all rejuvenated. And Kirk goes, "If Genesis is indeed life from death, I must return to this place." And that great,
Interesting.
Very interesting. And Jim, how do you feel?
Yes.
Young. I feel young.
As when the world was new. And it's such a powerful moment because it is the completion of the circle that we started with, which is Kirk's midlife crisis. It has been solved by the time the end of the film. He has embraced what he is supposed to do with his life. He has lost a friend in the process, but his friend's loss has taught him something about his life.
And even with the death of an iconic character like Spock, that moment on the bridge, followed by the birth of this new planet, seeing all the life, and seeing the torpedo tube that made it intact, leaving hope for Star Trek 3, and then hearing, like above a whisper,
Space, the final frontier. These are the continuing voyages of the starship Enterprise. Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
And it's Nimoy, not Shatner, who says it. And then the score at the end. Now, it took many years for me to break down Star Trek's 2 and 3 in this simple manner. In Star Trek 2, Spock died saving the Enterprise. In Star Trek 3, the Enterprise returned the favor.
Yes, that's a great point.
That is
absolutely
just in the simplest terms.
Yeah.
Now, I never really dug that in the beginning of Star Trek 3, which is supposed to pick up right where Star Trek 2 left off. Everybody's kind of depressed, but Kirk is depressed. I mean, what happened to the rejuvenation that he had at the end of Wrath of Khan? But that's for another Cine-Files.
Sure.
Maybe.
That's for another Cine-Files. Another 3-hour-long Cine-Files.
So that just we've made it to the end of an epic, but I think deserved epic Cine-Files. And I just want to ask, so Scott, what are your final thoughts on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan?
Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, it is a movie I've seen more than 100 times. I could watch it number 101 right now. I could act it out with you right now.
Absolutely.
And I would still get just as much joy and pleasure out of seeing it for the first time, the 50th, the 75th. It holds up, everything about it. The themes are classic. The characters are fully realized. The dialogue, the direction, the editing, the score, the cinematography, all of it, everyone in this film is at the top of their game. And budget aside, so it was the least expensive Star Trek movie of them all, but it is still the best out of 13 films.
Yep.
Agreed. How about you?
For me, I have to say, I echo everything Scott says. It is one of my favorite films, aside from quality or whatever. Top 5 favorite films for me to eminently rewatch over and over and over again. I will flip channels, and if I catch it, I'm done for an hour and a half or an hour. It's impossible. It is cracked to me because of the fact that this film, you can watch it at any age of your life, and there is something that resonates for you. When I was a kid, I watched it because it reminded me of my father. As I got in my 20s, it reminded me that this old age is coming. Now that I'm in my 40s, I feel a resonance with Kirk that I never felt before, which is why the film breaks me down and makes me emotional in ways that it never did before, because I understand this struggle, this pain, this idea of like, where am I now? What do I do next now?
Kirk,
because what I'd relied on.
Kirk is in his early 50s in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I'm 48.
Yeah. There you go. And so there's a connecting thing to it. But what Scott says is great. Everyone is fantastic as an act. The writing, the story, the pacing. But there's a love for the franchise that comes through in this film that connects with every Star Trek lover, that they did it right, and they did it with love and reverence, and they pushed the boundaries, and they fully realized this Gene Roddenberry concept of what Star Trek could be. And I think this film really captures that.
No question about it. Now, for me, I think about that little kid that I was that loved Star Trek. And what's so great about Wrath of Khan is that not every Star Trek episode is great. Some of them are kind of bad.
Yeah,
I agree.
But Wrath of Khan captures that essence that I loved as a kid and elevates it into something that I can love as an adult.
Yeah.
It elevates it, the themes in it deepen, the characters deepen, the ideas deepen. Like all of the power of what I love about Star Trek is right there. Yeah. And I'll tell you something. I don't know exactly the process of how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to introduce my kid eventually to Wrath of Khan.
Absolutely.
I don't know quite what I'm going to show him first, and I hope that he can see in it what I see in it, which is a story about family and ideals and struggles and growing old and relationships and sacrifice and doing the right thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the true beauty of the film is that you don't even have to have seen the original Space Seed episode to enjoy the film.
No, you really don't.
You don't.
And Marla McIvers, her name is never mentioned.
Yes.
No. Very interesting.
Just she's alluded to, but never mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we think of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. We would love to hear what you think. You can always visit us on Facebook at the Cine-Files. That's CINE-FILES. If you want to subscribe to us on Stitcher, put in Cine-Files, but no dash. Cine-Files, 2 words. They don't like dashes. If you want to subscribe to us on iTunes, you absolutely should. And while you're on iTunes, you should review us because we really need those reviews. Yep. And we always want to hear from you. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at SR Morris. John, where can you reach you?
You guys can always reach me at The Rocha Says, ROCHA, on Twitter and Instagram. And follow me. I love interacting with you guys. And especially if you love Wrath of Khan as much as the 3 of us do, let's have a conversation on any social media.
Scott, can they reach you anywhere?
Yes, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Movie Mantz. Now it's MANTZ. So on Twitter and on Instagram at Movie Mantz. Like you, John, I love interacting with people, especially about movies and especially about Star Trek. So bring it on.
And do you have anything to plug? Do you have anything to plug coming up?
Oh, and you can catch my reviews on Access Hollywood and AccessHollywood.com.
At your local gas station.
Well, we certainly love interacting with you about Star Trek on the Cine-Files. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, guys. This was the best.
The truce was worth it.
The truce was worth it. But
you know what?
You are going down.
Gentlemen,
down.
Gentlemen.
Just forget it. Just
all right. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time on the Cine-Files.